Guys, welcome to a brand new edition of the new podcast, Full-Time Reds. I am so excited to be launching this podcast today with some special guests. I wanted to do something different, something new, something unique, something because a lot at the moment in the Manchester United community, everybody's going on about the transfer window, everybody's going on about the Jim Ratcliffe takeover. And I wanted to do something where we shine light and a view on Erik Ten Hag from an Ajax point of view. So I'm delighted today. I've got the guys from We Talk Ajax on, who I really admire. Guys, welcome. How are you?
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Great. Firstly, guys, like I was saying to you off air, I'm a big fan of your work. I came across your work on United View, where I really enjoyed your insight before Ten Hag actually took over, and you were giving an insight onto how he works, how he operates. So I know since Manchester United came to Ajax have gone downhill, and so Manchester United. So I wanted to start off with, and I'll put it out to both of you guys. From an Ajax point of view, where do you think it has gone wrong for Erik Ten Hag? Juan, I'll go with you. If you go first on this one, actually.
Yeah, sure. I think probably last summer, because I always felt looking at last season that Ten Hag was doing the most he could with the squad that he had, and of course he bought some players. We know that, but the squad was not doesn't have a lot of depth. He doesn't have, in my opinion, the players to play a little bit more controlling, attacking football. In certain manners and certain ways that he would like to do, and I felt like he squeezed everything he got from that squad last season. You also saw Manchester United struggling towards the very end. A lot of injuries, a lot of players who were just drained in terms of energy because they played a lot of games. You guys were also, I believe, playing in a lot of competitions towards the very end as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always going into the summer, like, I hope United does well and learns from this season. It doesn't take him as a standard, because I didn't feel like this was a standard United season in which it was ordinary what Ten Hag achieved with these type of players, with this bunch of players, this squad. So I always felt like they should have really invest and bring in more quality, and also in terms of depth, get in more players that can inject a little bit more, how do you call it, like a higher ceiling in this team. And that didn't happen, to be honest.
Papi Beto, what do you think? Where do you think he's gone wrong? Do you kind of agree with that, or what's your kind of view on that?
I think that's part of it, but I think also, the owners putting the club for sale is not going to make it better for the club. It creates a lot of unrest. It doesn't give the right message during a season. I think even United had to go for Wout Weghorst as a striker because, for me, that's not a quality striker United should be going for. But because of money issues, no money, loan, he became an option. But yeah, that stopped kind of the rebuilding, to be honest, if you talk about it. You give Ten Hag a chance. First year, he does okay with the quality he has. He did buy some players. Maybe he paid a little bit too much for certain players. But also, Licha, I have a shirt on from Ajax, Martinez. He's my dog. He's my beast. He was our silent captain within the Ajax team. And I saw that immediately happening in United as well. And after his injury, it was hard replacing him. And he's not the only injured player at United. If you look at Varane, how much he's injured. At Martial, how much he's injured. These are the players you want to be playing all the time and not have to be worrying about injuries.
One thing Ajax were very known for under Ten Hag, and we can go to the Real Madrid games where they played them off the park and, sensational play, was that Ajax under Ten Hag had a clear style of play. And they had a certain profile of player that matched that style of play. Why do you think he struggled to create any style of play? And I'll give, just to add into this, just a bit of context, is it because of the amount of games he has been playing? Is it because just a mishmash of players? What's your view, Juan? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is has happened?
Well, to answer the question first, we have to know what style of play he wants to let United players play, because I was under the assumption he wants to resemblance the Ajax way as much as possible.
I think we were all with.
Yeah, but during the interview with Viaplay here in the Netherlands, he actually said that, well, we cannot play the Ajax way at United because I have different set of players, different culture here. I'm just here to get wins, and make this team a winning team. I know this is the way of Ten Hag to communicate with the press, and being vague a little bit about it and stuff. But I do think that he wants to resemble a little bit the way that he played at Ajax as much as possible. The thing is that during the tenure at Ajax, he had two different successful phases. The 18-19 was very known to everyone, the most successful one. But everything came together in that year in terms of the players that we had and their abilities. They were top-notch. Every player on that pitch knew how to play football, is press-resistant, can play multiple positions, not afraid to lose the ball, offensively, very good. So this is like more of a, how do you call it? You can always look at that season and say it might be a one-season wonder. What makes Ten Hag so good is that once Frankie left, De Ligt left, and a lot of players left after as well, he also made a successful Ajax team 2 years later with a couple of different players, and he played a little bit differently, but still it was successful. And one of the things that's very important is that you have a team with a bunch of players, leaders, that are taking over that instruction of Ten Hag and are also bridging the gap in terms of how they want to play with the other players. That's something I feel like is lacking in the United dressing room, locker room. I don't know who's the leader, not the one wearing the armband, but who's the one that is really taking over and playing the style of Ten Hag and trying to be exemplary on the field. I'm not seeing that. That's one. I think maybe Pavimento was right. Maybe Licha is that guy, but he was injured.
Licha, and to be honest, Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw has been great under Ten Hag, and he wasn't that kind of player before him. So for me, you have to address Luke Shaw in there as well. And he adopted the style of Ten Hag very well.
So I think it's very important to have a couple of leaders that really stand behind their coach in terms of how they want to play and also show that on the pitch. And what doesn't help as well is all the injuries that you've had, that Ten Hag always has to look at different players, rotate, look at other options, etc. That doesn't help build up chemistry within the team.
Do you want to add anything into that, Pavimento?
No.
I think, yes,
just a little bit. When the Ajax team came together in 18-19, I just want you to know, these players that came from the youth, it was a young team. They added Daley Blind and Tadic, 2 transfers for a little bit of experience, but the most of the team was highly talented players that were already around with the Ajax youth team, that understand the way Ajax plays, that understands the Ajax structure and how we want to attack, how we want to move on the pitch. This is all known. And I feel like Ten Hag went to United and he had to start all over from scratch and implement his thoughts on how he wants to play. And he's still doing that. And I think it's unfair to accept that. Have that in 2 years or
I think I'm still a very much Ten Hag backer. I think he should be given time. Because any manager that comes into Manchester United will struggle. Reason being because of so many different profile of players. Just the amount of games, if we just take last season as an example, it's difficult to implement a style of play. And number 3, because it's such a tough league, it's very hard. Something that would take maybe in Holland a year to do, it might take 2.5 years to do in the Premier League, just because of the games, the things that are involved with the Premier League. When I was putting this together, I did a bit of research into managers and teams, and I looked at Jurgen Klopp, and I looked at other managers from across the globe as well. And one thing I realized was in the second season, when a manager goes to a new league, other managers start to figure out that manager's style of play. Because I remember when Pep Guardiola came to to England, he had never even heard of the second ball, and you've got to win the second ball. And he goes, when I figured out the second ball and winning the second ball, I started understanding how to compete in the Premier League. Do you think Ten Hag's current struggles are more to do with, could be to do with teams figuring out his style of play and him not having a really good plan B, or would you say it's just purely injuries that are really impacting him the most?
Multiple reasons. May I take this?
Yeah, please.
Multiple reasons, Bilal. Look, we have seen United play, and we have seen United play also very good games, but it's always the scoring that lets you down. It was the same last season. It's the same this season. I think this season, defensively, you're lacking a bit more than last season. That's why you're conceding so much, and that's why the results are not there. But also when you were doing good in the first season, the goals weren't there. And I feel like there were many moments, I think we're going to talk about Antony in a bit. There were many moments in which there should have been a goal or an assist or anything happening, but it didn't happen. Or a miss, or the ball wasn't given, or so many things. And I feel like it's not working yet. The midfield, the creativity up front, something there still has to work out.
I don't feel to answer your question, Bilal, that there is. I do understand why you're asking this question. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't see there is one pattern. The reason why you guys have lost so many games. I just feel like what Papimento said is true. Also, if you take into account Champions League, you give away too many silly goals.
We scored a lot in the Champions League as well. We scored a lot of goals. I think we scored like 15, 16, and we conceded so many. We scored 3 at Bayern or 4, whatever it was, and we just constantly conceded.
It's uncharacteristic also for Ten Hag when he was coaching us, because one thing that he did introduce when he came to Ajax was defensively we were much better. Ajax always know to playing attacking football, so we are always vulnerable in transition and stuff like that. He made sure that defensive-wise we were much better than previously. Attacking, we were always creative and creating chances, these kind of things, but defensively we were much better, tighter as well. So it's hard, it's hard to see what's going on. It's hard to see why this is happening to United. It's even harder for us because we are following more Ajax than United. So
of course,
I feel the construction of the team. I've said this before a couple of months ago in another United channel. I feel like in the summer, Ten Hag, but I don't know what goes on beyond, right? I mean, I don't know if Ten Hag has. Ten Hag, look, let me put it this way. I don't want to say like it's the fault of not having the right players and stuff like that, but because you did recruit players, you did sign expensive players, so I know that this has been happening. I just feel like I'm wondering whether the direction you guys are heading, whether that has been a good one, and I also question, which I always had, and even when he was at Ajax, Ten Hag, giving Ten Hag the keys or the reins to have a massive say in signings is a risk, to be honest.
For one, I'm glad you raised this, which we'll come on to later on, but I think there's been a lot of scrutiny on this regarding Ten Hag having this signings. The issue, what nobody talks about regarding this point, is when Manchester United went to Ten Hag, he was the most sought-after upcoming coach in Europe, probably the world, fact. He was linked with some big jobs, and if you remember that season, Rangnick was in charge, and it was like this season, it was going downhill, and really Ten Hag, and he probably looked at their recruitment and thought, I could probably do a better job than this because this is all over the place. Now looking back at it, it's probably a mistake, because if you look at our transfer window, we're predominantly signing players that he's worked with or he's familiar with. It worked last season. This season, time will tell, but it has been a risk that we've had to take But I don't feel we had any other option because he was the only coach we wanted at the time. We wanted somebody that because under Solskjaer, we had this perception that, he just manages on vibes. He's not really a manager. We need a coach that can come in, improve the players. And he was the best out there. And I feel they got cornered, but from this morning's reports, I think his role is about to be reduced at Manchester United quite heavily from a recruitment point of view. Whether he agrees with that or not, time will tell. You never know. He could end up at Ajax again. You never know the next season. Just coming on to recruitment then, this is something you guys can obviously have a really good insight onto, is Antony, who has been made a bit of a scapegoat under Ten Hag. And as you've probably seen online, any touch he does, everything gets clipped up. Meme-wise, his touches, he's overanalyzed. What are your thoughts generally on Antony when he was at Ajax? Do you think he was the right profile for the Premier League? Just generally, what do you think of the player? Papi Mento, you go with this.
Well, I thought Antony at Ajax was a very good player. Of course, he has limitations. I thought he was not ready for the Premier League when United came for him. I thought he was not worth the 100 million. But because of the timing last week of the transfer deadline, and that price tag is putting so much pressure, I think, on him. Look, I have seen Antony playing good games. I've seen Antony playing decent games, and I've seen him playing bad games. But to see his stats, I do feel that they're misrepresentation of what he's bringing. Because even if he's not scoring, he does bring some press resistance to the team. He creates chances for others. I've seen the new striker you guys bought, Højlund.
Rasmus Højlund.
A lot of chances also from assists from Antony or other players. So, look, does he have to do more? Absolutely. Does he have to stop cutting to his left, to his right foot and going to the center the whole time? Absolutely. But if you look at how he played at Ajax, we have Masraoui coming from the back, from the side. He could cut in. He always has an option on the side. Or he has number 10 options moving into the box for short combination play to create a chance. I don't see that much at United. Why don't I see that much? Because I feel that Ten Hag is playing a more direct style. He wants to benefit the team more in a counter-attack way, so the ball has to progress faster to the attackers. This suits certain players as Rashford, as Antony, but it does put you out of position. It doesn't put your team into position to press the opponent when you lose the ball. And that's still something I think that's the next level he has to get United to. And I think the better the team gets, the better Antony will flow for you as well.
Go on.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, Antony has to do much, much better, of course. I do agree also that maybe for the Premier League, he wasn't yet ready, I believe. But when United came, all the Ajax fans were like, if you get anything between 50 and 60, that'll be fine. But, we're talking about euros, I'm sorry, so not pounds. So, it went all the way to 100. But, that's the thing. If we come back to the recruitment, and you look at last summer and this summer, everything happened at a very late stage of the window. There's something fundamentally wrong at United with recruitment. I don't know what it is, but you guys are always paying the highest prices for players that are not world-class players at the moment. You understand what I mean? These are all potentials, projects, or players that have been very good, like Casemiro. When you guys bought him, he was already, his peak were already behind him a little bit. You understand what I mean? I'm not saying it wasn't timing. I'm just saying that you guys are always paying the highest prices and giving massive contracts for players that are not really those players anymore, or not yet. And that's not the way you run a successful club, a football club. And I'm distracting a little bit from Ten Hag. I know people are very upset with Ten Hag, rightfully so, because he's responsible for what happens on the pitch. In terms of Antony, I think Antony, I've seen a couple of games of him, and he's not a player that is flashy or the player that will like go one-on-one, beat his opponent and score. Like you see now, there's a lot of rumor and discussion going on now. Like, people should have signed Kudus instead of Antony. which is also a misinterpretation of the situation, because Kudus actually was never really utilized by Ten Hag as a winger, but more as a central player, as a false 9 or as a 10 or that kind of player. And Kudus is put on the wing because of his defensive work rate is not that much tactically sound that he can play in the center area, because then he will lose his guy or his direct opponent. So that's why they give him a freedom at the wing. And then when he gets the ball, he can just go in the middle and be much more creative and do whatever he wants. It's a little bit different how they utilize Kudus, but he's not a classical winger as Antony was. Not to mention that Kudus was injured a lot when Ten Hag was the coach. So this is a little bit of a discussion that's going on a lot by a lot of fans, but that's not a fair discussion to have.
You know, one thing about Antony, I do agree, is some of his stats are misrepresented. His work rate is very, very good, you know, up and down the wing. If you compare him to Rashford, he probably covers way more ground defensively as well. True. Secondly, I think one of the problems he's had at Manchester United is he's not had a consistent right back to build a partnership up with, whether they know who comes in, who goes out. So sometimes if you watch Antony, he's usually isolated by two players, which is difficult for any winger in the world. And thirdly, where he's not helped himself is that he constantly cuts in to his left foot, and in the Premier League they'll very quickly suss that out, and teams will let him come in on the left and let United play the cross in. And because we have in the Premier League very, very big defenders, will deal with the aerial ball. But the third thing is, or the fourth thing I've lost track there, is that I don't think he's very physical enough for the Premier League. Premier League is a very physical league.
Yeah, cool. I think one-on-one duels, when you go into duels, I think that's one of the things you don't want him to get into, because he will lose the ball most certainly. I agree with you. Look, like Roberto highlighted, our right side with Mazraoui and Antony was like second to none. There was, even in Europe, it was very good. We had Tadic and Blind on the left side, and those are good players. But our right side with Antony and Mazraoui was incredible. They also had this chemistry that they felt each other like instantaneously. Mazraoui would go inverted sometimes. Antony would stay wide. Sometimes Antony would go inside, then Mazraoui goes on the outside. These kind of things, you don't see it right now, and you cannot blame, I don't know, Wan-Bissaka is playing now on the right. You cannot blame...
Our right backs are terrible. You know, they're up to a certain standard. They're not very, very good. If you imagine Antony with somebody like Reece James or somebody of that caliber, I think you would see a better player. At the same time, I do think his game has to develop, and it has to develop quickly, because the Premier League, the physicality alone and the one-on-one isolations, he has to take his game forward. Riyad Mahrez was very, very good at this. He kept his game very, very simple. You know, if you ever watched him, he kept it. And I think Antony now needs to go back to the basics and just play the simple game. I remember when we signed Ronaldo, he used to do a lot. Eventually, I was watching Gary Neville's interview the other day, and he said eventually we got him to just play simple and build his game from there. Just kind of linking into this question, when we signed Martinez, the big criticism of him was he was too short, and he's not physical enough for the Premier League. And it worked out quite opposite, where he was physical enough for the Premier League. And even though he didn't have the height, his tactical game awareness is phenomenal. You know, it's probably the best out there I've seen in a long time for a centre-back. Probably Van Dijk was the last one. Who else is a Dutch?
But actually, for a little small player, he reminds me a little bit of the old Cannavaro, because his jumping ability is there. He will still win his aerial duels.
100%. And the Dutch very rarely produce a really bad centre-back, in my opinion, right? They produce technically sound players who can... Daley Blind's a prime example. Manchester United should never have sold Daley Blind. It was suicidal to sell Daley Blind back to Ajax, because he was tactically very, very good. He was 3 moves ahead of everybody else. His positional play. He went back to Ajax at the time, and now he's even doing really well in Spain as well. So, you know, the Dutch always produce really, really good technical players. You know, just coming on to injuries, back to the injury Did Ten Hag have this many injuries at the start of his career at Ajax when he was implementing a new style? So it's totally.
Look, I will tell you this about Ten Hag. Ten Hag's played almost every week the same team. If he didn't have to change, he wouldn't change it because he gives trust to the main 11, and you have to prove yourself that you belong on the first team sheet. So if you want to be on the first team sheet, you have to show on the training that you're better than the guy in front of you. And that's always has been his mentality. But because of our schedule in the Eredivisie is totally different than the Premier League. You guys play 3 games in 1 week. That's almost every week during the season. You compete on FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League. The Premier League has 4 times more games than the Eredivisie. So just the amount of games you guys play more, you cannot just depend on one team. And then the mistake that Manchester United does is, where's the depth? If the quality on the pitch is enough to win games, when you bring in the players from the bench, it also should be enough to win games. And I feel the lack of quality off the bench is something still that has to be addressed and worked at.
Yeah, I think that's why they should also give him time. I think.
Sorry, Bilal. I also want to ask you a question. What's happening? Can you explain to me how a player like Rashford last season compared to this season? What is going on with him? How can you go from being one of the best players at United to going to completely losing your form and having Garnacho playing on your side, on your position?
Yeah. Oh, I think there's a number of reasons. Number one, I think he's got a very bad attitude. Number one. Number two is I think he's very hot and cold. If you look at his history, he's up one season, he's down 2 seasons. Next season, he's up 1 season. He's not a consistent player where he'll hit you minimum 20 goals a season. I'll use Riyad Mahrez as an example again of a consistent winger. He's not a Mo Salah, Riyad Mahrez. He delivers consistently. Number 3 is when Jose Mourinho was at Manchester United, and Rashford at the time has always had in his head he wanted to be a number 9. And the reason Mourinho never played him as a number 9 was because he used to struggle finding space and making movement. So they moved him back out to the left. So in his head, he's stuck between 2 positions. And thirdly, I think he thinks he's better than what he is. Hence why his work rate's very low on that side. He doesn't deliver. And more than likely, like I've said many times, is in the Premier League, you have to keep evolving your game season on season. If you were getting goals from your left, you need to develop your right side. You need to develop your aerial heading ability. Mo Salah has done this consistently season on season on season. And I think Rashford is just stuck in a situation where he just thinks he's better than what he is. The managers come and go, club owners change, but the basics is always put in the effort, put in the work rate. That should be non-negotiable. You might have a game where the right back got the better of you, the left back got the better of you, the defender, which is fine, but your work rate. Next time, Juan, I'll give you something interesting to watch. Next time you watch Manchester United, notice Rashford never goes for a 50-50 or an aerial ball. He'll never go for the ball. When it's in the air, he just stands there and he lets the other person win it. And then the 50-50, he pulls out. And if you're not going to go for your 50-50s, that's the first down. You're going to leave your team in a very difficult situation. That's my opinion on him. He winds me up to the maximum. I just can't stand his level of entitlement. I'm not a fan of him at the moment. I did like him last season. There's somebody watching that I think that really hate him. But this season, that's my thoughts on him. Ten Hag has come across as a disciplinarian. He dealt with a lot of issues in his first season, from Ronaldo to showing different players, who's in charge. Did he have discipline issues at Ajax, and how did he deal with them at Ajax?
Well, not many. Not many. He had the issue with Noah Lang, I think, on the pitch, where Noah Lang wasn't doing what the captain was asking.
Yes, it's a famous clip now. I've seen the clip.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's very clear.
I think after that, immediately Noah Lang was sold or loaned out. Juan, just remind me. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. And he had the issue with Younes. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I mean, Younes at the early stages, actually, he just was appointed coach, and he wanted Younes to get into the match, being subbed on, I think, in injury time, and Younes just said no. Uh, so so he didn't come in, but then he got a fine basically, and Younes was later also sold to Napoli, so he never played with Ten Hag anymore. But that was really at the very start of his coaching career at Ajax, and like Pavimento said, with going long, but that was just like this incident in which he said that he has to listen to Tadic and not play his own game, which he said in Dutch to him. But that's it. Nothing like what's going on like with Ronaldo and with Sancho. Nothing.
He's constantly. Sancho one I felt was I felt very bad for Ten Hag on that, because number one, he helped Sancho a lot last season in a difficult period. He sent him away for 3 months. Regarding what Ten Hag said about Sancho this season, it was a question somebody asked, and it was an off-the-wall kind of comment. It wasn't even like he said he came out to go for Sancho. And many managers this season have had the similar issue. Pochettino has had this, who said about a player, and the player's playing well now. So I think he was very ill-advised. But I also, just to kind of, my view on Sancho is that I feel he's not cut for the Premier League. Reason being, in the Bundesliga, they all play a very high line, so there's a lot of space behind. In the Premier League, the lower teams do have low blocks, and he struggles with that. If you look at Leroy Sané, he struggled towards the end at Manchester City, and in the Bundesliga, you'd think he's a Ballon d'Or winner. He's playing that well. And that's where I think Sancho is struggling in the Premier League. One question I forgot to ask was regarding recruitment at Ajax. How important was Overmars to Ten Hag's team building and finding the right player?
Huge, important.
Yeah. Look, Overmars was already at Ajax before Ten Hag came. Actually, Overmars was the one that wanted Ten Hag and signed Ten Hag at the end. But Overmars was building Ajax from the bottom up financially, but also in terms of the squad building. We had very young players. We didn't have a lot of money, so every year we were selling our best players and getting new signings in. And Overmars was building Ajax to that stage, to the 18-19 season, But when Ten Hag was signed, his first signing was Tagliafico, actually. Nico Tagliafico on the left side, who now plays for Lyon. It was important, and we've always heard after that, whenever a signing came in, it was Overmars and Ten Hag should both be agreeing to that signing. So let's say if Ten Hag comes up with a name, Overmars doesn't agree, they don't sign him. And if Overmars came with a signing and Ten Hag was not really in favor of that, that wouldn't happen either. So it had to be a favor, or it had to be agreed upon by both before getting in touch or trying to sign a player.
Pavimento, you can see with Overmars when he left Ajax, the huge gap he left. Even with recruitment, the team build. Obviously, Ajax have had a difficult 2 seasons as well. Do you see Overmars ever coming back into football?
He is. I think
he
works in Belgium, right? He works as a sport
at Antwerp. Yeah, he works at Antwerp.
I do not know that. I do not know that.
Van Bommel is the coach there.
I see. Oh, with Van Bommel, right? Yes. Okay. Let me rephrase the question then. Do you see him getting a much higher profile job ever again in Europe, in the big leagues? After what?
Maybe if he does very, very well, I think it would happen. But till now, he's still a risk. He still has in the Netherlands a ban, I think, to work for any club. So I think this has to die down before he ever gets a chance. But look, his work at Ajax was phenomenal. What he did with Ajax was something that hasn't been done before in a long time. And he made a mistake, yes, and it was regretful. But what he did for Ajax and bring us back to glory days, is something an Ajax fan will never forget. So they will always hold him in high regard.
can I add to what Pavimento said? The ban is the ban that he got. Yeah, it's domestic, so it's only applicable in the Netherlands for now. But it has also been brought to the European Court of Justice, so they will look at that as well. This is ongoing and pending, so who knows what that would mean for Overmars. Apart from that, he also has a medical condition because he suffered from a heart attack, I think. And his medical condition is not of that. He's not that healthy that he can sustain a lot of stress. So I wonder whether he would ever be the director of football at a bigger team. Or
he was linked with Arsenal for a while, wasn't he? If I'm not mistaken, when he was
at Ajax. He was at Ajax, which made a lot of sense, to be honest.
Yeah. Just last two questions, guys, for you guys. As Ajax fans who witnessed a long-term project under Ten Hag, what level of patience do you think should be given to him as United fans? Juan, I'll start with you on that one. What level of patience should we give Ten Hag?
It's hard to answer, to be honest, because look, at the end of the day, United, Ajax, every big club in their own leagues, they want results. And you can have patience as a fan, knowing that, the context of situations, where you're coming from, injuries, all these kind of things you can take into the box, and think about it and say, okay, we'll have a little bit more patience. But at the end, United fans want to compete. They want to compete for the prize as well. And I'm not saying winning them, but at least competing for them. And the results up to this point this season, even if you take into account all these things that, context, it's very disappointing. Out of Europe, I believe, also already.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's unacceptable, to be honest. If you look at the group as well, it shouldn't have happened, despite the injuries. You guys already lost, I think, 10 league games, which is 50%.
Stop looking at the amount of games. It's every week at the moment.
Yeah, no, but it's very inconsistent. And the style of play is legitimate concern. You don't see a lot of patterns of play. You do see it, but not good enough. You don't see like, if you look at the games that you guys lose, also some of them, what's very frustrating is the lack of creation of chances. You don't see like you guys create a lot of chances, but you don't make them. And then you can see the goal or two goals and you lose the game. Then you're like, okay, you know what? We're not taking the chances. You can say something like that. But that's also not the case. There's a lack of chances being created. Defensively, it's always looking a little bit suspect, to be honest. The midfield lacks...
we don't have a midfield.
I'm sorry?
Balance.
We don't have a midfield.
That's the thing. That's the thing. The thing that's very concerning as well, if you guys would score a goal, you're still not comfortable sitting as a United fan thinking, oh, we can now dominate the game, play the game out, and let the team come out, and then we hit them on the counterattack or something like that. You guys don't have that confidence in the team. There's a lot that has to be restored in this team and this squad in general. And the question is, can Ten Hag stabilize this team, this squad, the players that he has this season? And will the United fans and also the ones in charge at United have the patience to sit this one out with him and say, okay, we know where we're heading, we know what's going on, and we know how we're going to improve? Because that's the most important thing. Look, Ten Hag is not going to quit. He's not that type of person. So he was always going to try and fight and find a solution. So again, it's very hard for me to give an answer. But the way things are going, I don't think he'll finish the season, to be honest.
Just before Pavimento, you come in, I want to just add into this, right? The problem Ten Hag has got, his midfield is very ill-disciplined. Bruno Fernandes is an ill-disciplined player. Scott McTominay is an ill-disciplined player. Bruno Fernandes used to get away with it because he would provide you an attacking output, assists, goals. So your two holding midfielders usually have to do his job for him. But because he has fallen off form-wise, you're then technically two players down in midfield, hence why everybody runs straight through the middle of Manchester United and scores the goals. And what's not helping Ten Hag is he keeps selecting players like Scott McTominay, who are very ill-disciplined, and we keep conceding because where Scott McTominay should be is where the goals should be coming from. But it's just
Look,
maybe Bilal, you're yeah, go.
playing and just quickly playing McTominay is so typical Ten Hag as well, because it reminds me of, like playing Davy Klaassen for Ajax.
Exactly.
The thing is that McTominay is an impact player. What he has shown with Ten Hag being the coach in a couple of occasions already is that he made important goals, made United win games. And this is something that will always stick with Ten Hag, that this player has made an impact. He's somebody that can make something change. Ten Hag always thinks like that as well. He's not a purist in the sense that the same as Pep. Pep looks at the game. He doesn't look at whether you had an impact or whether you scored a goal, yes or no. He looked at this game. Are you contributing to the playing style? And are you making it flow better, yes or no? If not, no matter who you are, you're out. Ten Hag doesn't think like that. Ten Hag thinks like, oh, you've made important goals before, because there were a lot of people very, I think, mad with the substitution of Mainau being sent out.
Yes, we lost to
coming in. But that's because purely an opportunistic sub. That's something that Ten Hag has done at Ajax as well, to try to find somebody that can have an impact on the game. Not necessarily in terms of football becoming better, but impact in terms of an assist or a goal. That's why he wants to play McTominay. I know it sounds simplistic, but that's sometimes also that's also Ten Hag sometimes.
Poppy, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Look, about McTominay specifically, you're complaining about his defensive skills, but he does score. So just put him on the 10, make sure he's always in the box when those assists or crosses come in and get dangerous. But when usually I see the attack, it's usually only Højlund in the box, and where's the rest? So,
the problem about Højlund being marked by 4 players.
Exactly. So,
yeah. Sorry, just one more thing. Before I forget, when we were at United View, you mentioned this before. I was once there, I believe. Yes, and I said like this was before Ten Hag was still going to play with the boys, with United players. And Pavimento started with this, because we were discussing this before we went on United's View, that probably he will choose to play Bruno on the wing and not in the midfield. And the reason for that is not because we think Bruno is a better winger. That was not the reason we came up with this concept. The concept was because he is, like you said already, he's too much of a liability on the midfield. He loses the ball. He always wants to give a nice pass. He doesn't always has the work ethic in terms of defensive transition. Sometimes he does, by the way. I've seen him done it before, but not always, which is the reason why I always compare them a little bit, not entirely the same, but a little bit with Ziyech. Ziyech was also playing on the wing with Ten Hag. He wasn't playing on the midfield, which he was playing before Ten Hag came to coach Ajax. So there is a reason for that. If you lose the ball on the wing, it's less of a risk than if you lose it on the midfield or something happens in the midfield. These kind of things all play into that narrative.
He comes more in a position to use his passing, use his crosses, use his shooting to make an impact, instead of constantly running back and running up and down the pitch without actually receiving the ball. Because that's actually not Bruno game. That's not his game. And I'm still thinking like, okay, if you put McTominay 10, maybe Mainau on 8, Amrabat on 6, you would have a decent midfield to go from there. But still, you're talking about a very young player, the Mainau.
I think he's 17, 18, yeah.
Exactly. Antony is still young. Højlund is still young. We've noticed at Ajax that when we play with a lot of young players, one game it could be excellent, one game it could be really shitty. It's never consistent. So also for United, I feel like maybe stop looking at the youngsters, because are you only looking at the long term, or are you also looking at results now, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where they are stuck.
Yeah. But
also
maybe this...
Yeah, I just want to say, because, we didn't really have an opportunity to really talk more like from the build-up, etc. But that's where the real problem lies with, the midfield is an issue, chance creation is an issue, but really the build-up is really an issue with United, because it all has to come from the center backs, right now. But the wing backs cannot do anything in terms of build-up. Number 6, even Amrabat, is not really a good build-up player. He's a good, how do you call it? Like somebody that brings balance on the midfield, like defensively, but also he knows how to spot danger, how to close down opposition, these kind of things. He does that well. But you also need, if you really want to play dominant football, you need somebody on the 6 that's very dominant in terms of ball, and also in terms of speeding up the game, in terms of, like going from left to right, etc. This is the problem. I mean, in my opinion, if you're looking at recruitment, you want to sign a player, you have to look at those players that really, and I know, like, if I throw a Frankie de Jong name right now, but
I was going to say Frankie de Jong then. I was going to say Frankie de Jong.
Yeah, but there's a reason why Ten Hag was pushing for Frankie de Jong last season as well. I mean, it's not going to happen, but you need a player of that magnitude in terms of what he can do with the ball on the number 6 position. Because I think what will happen now with Martinez being back, I know he lacks a rhythm now, match rhythm, but eventually if he stays healthy, he will help you guys a lot in terms of the build-up. But you need build-up from multiple sections of the play, not only from one player, because it's very easy to defend as an opposition.
I see it a little bit
on the original discussion, but I just want to say that.
I see it a little bit different than Juan. Like, if your number 6 is not a footballing number 6, then your backs, both fullbacks, have to be good on the ball and being creative, like a Daley Blind or a Mazraoui. They have to be able to go to the midfield, play inverted, play outside, move up, give crosses. So it's more than just defending a fullback. It's so much more in an Ajax way of playing. You have to actually be a midfielder. And usually
you need players.
The best backs are the midfielders.
Exactly. You need players that can take the ball in pressure situations. They can play 1-2s out. They can beat the press. And United have a mismatch of profiles that cannot do that. And then you're relying on 1 or 2 players that are getting marked out the game. Big long balling. Hence why it becomes very frustrating. Just the last question then. Sure. And I'll start with one, and then probably if you can answer this, is basically, do you see Ten Hag succeeding at Manchester United?
Can I see it happening? Yes. I can see it happening.
Will you see it happening?
Will I see it happening? Only if now with the new structure, if a new structure is implemented, football structure is implemented, because I want to just finish this stream answering what you just asked me by how you started. Like, since Ten Hag came to United, we've been going down. Both our clubs are going down. But in both cases, it's because of a lack of football structure, of clear identity, clear structure, and people knowing what to do in the technical side of things. If United can restore that, Ten Hag has a chance. If not, Ten Hag doesn't have a chance, and also the future coaches will not have a chance. That's something that United should really focus on, probably, despite of whether Ten Hag succeeds, yes or no, but for the future.
Papi, you?
I don't think he will get the time. I think he will succeed if you give him a 3rd season, to set some things right. But to be honest, if I look at the squad now, there's still a lot of work to be done. I think if you look at the Ajax way of playing, Rashford is not an Ajax player. Maguire is not an Ajax player. Even, I would say, they bought him, but Casemiro is not an Ajax player, in my opinion.
You have too many players, in my opinion, that are too comfortable. They've been with the club for so long. You need to refresh the blood a little bit in this team. You need to bring this energy, the new players that are wearing a United shirt and really want to go 120 miles an hour every minute. I think it's missing a little bit. And I'm not taking away from how good a Rashford can be, but also Martial has been with the club for a long time. There are a lot of players that have been with United for a long time with different coaches, etc. They should actually make way for a new United, in my opinion. But again, it all comes down to the structure. If really people come at United responsible, knowing what to do, And that's not something that should be laid on.
But Milan just
Not something that should be laid on Ten Hag. Ten Hag should be focused on what happens on the pitch.
Sorry, Poppy, you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you were complaining about your two fullbacks, but not being able to play the Ajax way, let's say. But I do know that these fullbacks were playing very well in their first season, and they got a contract extension. Harry Maguire could have been sold. They didn't sell him because they needed him or something like that. McTominay played a decent first season, also got a contract extension. But if you are thinking about the long term and the Ajax way and playing a more high quality of game, then you have to also consider a more high quality of players. And we're not seeing that yet.
I agree with you guys totally. I think there's too many. We've still got players from Van Gaal's time at Manchester United, Mourinho's time, Solskjaer's time, different profiles. From my point of view on this, I really hope he succeeds. I really believe in him. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think if he was to get sacked tomorrow, I still see him getting a top job somewhere and doing very, very well. I think what he needs to do is, from what I've read this morning, is he's got till the end of the season. He should play his way, what he thinks, and if he goes out on his own kind of way of playing, and at least he can say it didn't work, rather than short-term fixes and trying to just get some results over the line. The fans will back him more if they see him trying to implement his ideas rather than trying to just win game by game. Even if he lost 3 games, but we could see what he was trying to do, you think, yeah, you know what, we're going to get behind him. So let's hope he does succeed. But guys, it has been an absolute pleasure for you guys to even take out time for our first episode as full-time Reds. Where can anybody connect with you guys, check your stuff out? Where how can they do that?
We Talk Ajax, YouTube, on X as well. So yeah, you guys can find us there.
And where do you guys think you'll finish the season? As my last question then.
We're all hoping to, 3 months ago, we were at the last league position, 18th.
Yes, I remember.
But now we're 5th. We hope to end the season on the number 3 position, which will give us a qualification chances for the Champions League next season. But that means we have to make up 9 or 10 points still till the end of the season. It's a lot, but let's see how it goes.
It's been so much.
Welcome, Bilal.